Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Section 4A podcast. This is your host, EG, and I'm here with my two friends, and we're going to be talking about a very hot topic, especially around our area, in the Bay Area. It is all about the 49ers in the upcoming season in the NFL. And I have a couple questions to ask my two friends here. The first question is an important question. Do you guys think when it comes to the 49ers this season, is it Super Bowl and bust? And if it is or if it is not, why? Like, why do you guys think that? What do you think?
It's a great question. I'm excited to do another episode with you guys. I think it has to be Super Bowl or bust because they've been so close for so long. The 49ers over the last 5 years have had countless, not countless, but a alarming number of really tough losses in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl a couple times to the Chiefs. And the problem is their team is aging, so it's like they have to hurry up and win one now because if they don't, it's going to be known, I think, as probably the greatest disappointment this century in the NFL. I mean, McCaffrey's getting up there in age. Kittle is obviously Trent Williams. Their team is aging, and they have won a lot of games. They've gone really deep into the postseason with nothing to show for it at all. And I think they have a lot of pressure to win now. And we're going to talk about why that is in particular in just a minute.
Yeah, so I actually think I feel like you could argue it's almost the opposite. Not because of how the Niners have done like pre last season, but just because of last season and like what happened. I don't know if you can say a six and whatever. I don't even know what they finished, but it was like 6 wins, maybe 6-12 or 6-11, something like that. I don't even know if you can say that that's a Super Bowl or bust kind of team just because of how bad they were. But then at the same time, it's also like you just mentioned how um, previously to or before last year they made a bunch of playoff appearances, Super Bowls, and all that kind of stuff. So they do have a lot of the core guys. I do feel like last year was like kind of that last year of like the core group, and like this year is a little bit different of a team. So I don't know if you could say Super Bowl or bust with this like core group of players because it is a little bit different, even though they still have a ton of like their core guys from their previous Super Bowl runs. But at the same time, I do expect them to at least make it far in the playoffs and not win it all. So I don't know. I'm in between if it's Super Bowl or bust. If I had to lean towards an answer, I'd probably pick Super Bowl. Yeah, it'd probably be a bust just because of the previous years, and like one bad year doesn't necessarily define a team. So that's where I stand with this upcoming season in the 49ers.
Yeah, and then I was looking right now when you were speaking, and I feel like the guys they rely on most are getting up there in age. So I was looking. So, for example, McCaffrey is going to be 30. Kittle's 31. Trent Williams, I think, is like 33 or 35. I got to go back and look,
I
but
think he's like
he's
37.
37. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
37. So yeah, like the guys they rely on most are all getting up there in age, and like they don't have a lot of time to mess around, then obviously, like, okay, let's say they don't win it this year, and then they have to go back another year. Well, who's to say in the future injuries don't come back and get them again? So, like, I think they need to have a sense of urgency to answer your question.
The only thing I will say is that if they, let's just say, if they weren't gonna win a Super Bowl this year, I wouldn't be as like surprised or disappointed as I was previously, like last year and the years before, because of like how many players and stuff they've lost. So I think this is probably like one of their least talented teams in a while. Relying on so many youth guys, but I wouldn't be as surprised this year if they didn't win a Super Bowl as other years in the past.
No, yeah, I 100% agree that this season is very vital when it comes to the 49ers' success or possible success for the simple fact that when it comes to this offense, the Kyle Shanahan offense and the way he runs things is a very run heavy offense. Christian McCaffrey is going to be the main focal point again. And I have a question for you guys. When it comes to the Kyle Shanahan offense and the way that he runs things, do you think he should have a reputation of a genius play caller or someone who just can't win the big games? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll
I
go
guess
first with
let's.
this
Oh,
one.
go
You
ahead.
want me to go?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so first, I honestly think he's probably been a top 10 coach this century. Because think about when he got to the Niners, they were terrible. They were like, I think they had the worst record in the league one of those years. So they were terrible. And then he turned them into this juggernaut almost single handedly. I know John Lynch helped a lot. So he's responsible for turning this team around. And also, it wasn't like one of those teams where they were kind of had a fluky season and made it far. Like they've had great teams that have made it super far, and everyone knows he has been throughout his career, whether it was with the Falcons, the Niners, even going back to Washington. I mean, he's been known as an offensive mastermind. The problem is, we now have three different pieces of evidence where he has come up short in the Super Bowl when he's had the lead. And I mean, we can talk about this, but you can place a lot of the blame for those Super Bowls directly on him. Like the Falcons, everyone knows that he stopped running the ball when they had a lead 28-3. And I mean, you can argue other things with the Niners when they lost to the Chiefs. How many times did they lose to the Chiefs again? I forgot.
No comment.
If you didn't know, I don't like the Niners, but I still will cover them. But you can put a lot of the blame on his shoulders for them not having a Super Bowl, and I think that's what's missing from his resume for him to be seen as one of those all-time great coaches, or at least maybe that second tier of all-time great coach. He's done a lot. He's obviously a genius when it comes to his offensive schemes. I mean, there was that one year where they kind of broke the league, where Deebo Samuel was running the ball. I mean, who thought of that? I mean, the rest of the league eventually came caught up, but he's done these things where he's great on offense, but it just has not worked out, and he needs that right now. So I think of him as an offensive mastermind, but he needs that ring to get to that next level, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think you answered it kind of perfectly. Both is a good answer, and this is kind of a rhetorical question, not for you guys to answer, but to just like think about. Um, how many coaches in the league would you take over Kyle Shanahan? And that's how I look at it. And so this is what I also kind of think about when like Niners fans are saying, "Oh, fire Shanahan, fire Shanahan." Like, who are we going to replace him with that's going to do the same, if not better? And the answer to that is the chances of that are really low. And so I think that he is kind of the coach that like can't win the big one, unfortunately for me. But is all the blame on him? I know the Falcons when he stopped running the ball, that's 100% on him. There's no question, and it's unacceptable. But in terms of the other Super Bowls, I don't know if you can put as much blame on him as the players. Jimmy G did miss Emmanuel Sanders for like a 40-yard throw or whatever that was, and had he made that throw, they win that game. And so um, that's not on him. He put the team in the perfect situation. Obviously, they didn't win the game, so just based off of that throw, so I can't put the blame on him. And then in the Super Bowl 2 years ago when they were playing Kansas City, they I'd like to think that game was more on the refs, just based off how many calls and stuff they missed. But I can see him being known as like the coach that can't win it all. But he is a genius play caller. I was just watching this video the other day that showed like he like took this play and like he made this like awesome play design, and he's known for that. And so when it comes to like his like reputation, like what he's going to be known as, I think he's going to be known as both. If he gets at least one Super Bowl, um the choker will go away. But let's say he doesn't get that Super Bowl, he'll still be known as one of the most probably the best one of the best play callers in the league history. And so I think the answer to your question is probably just both.
But even if like we just assume he is a choker, like we just say, okay, he's the guy that comes up short in big games. We still have to remember, like I said, I don't think he gets enough credit for turning around the Niners. They were terrible when he got there. They didn't really have any players to build around, and he turned them around, which is, I think, a really underrated part of his career. Um, I mean, that's basically all that I wanted to say as far as that goes.
Exactly. I think The fact that he turned around a terrible franchise, like you mentioned earlier, terrible, one of the worst records in the league, if not the worst record for I don't know so many handful of seasons, and then he made them a Super Bowl contender is impressive. So going back to like what I said, like when Niners fans say, "Oh, let's fire Shanahan," like we need a new coach, like who are we going to replace him with? And like I think the answer to that is no one, quite frankly.
Oh yeah, and then one more thing I wanted to mention. I think another thing he should get credit for is he's taken two different, in my opinion, average quarterbacks to the Super Bowl, and that never happens. I mean, almost every quarterback you see in the Super Bowl is usually top five, and Niners fans might disagree, but Purdy is not a top five, or he's a fringe top 10 quarterback in my opinion. But I'm trying to give Shanahan credit. He took Jimmy G and Purdy to a Super Bowl, had both of them playing where they should have probably won it. So that's, I mean, you have to give him credit for that.
And that goes back to his play calling. So the fact that he had a couple average quarterbacks make it that far and so close, and that goes back to, like you said, his play calling. And they were like the number one overall seed those years. So it wasn't just like they got hot in the postseason. Like they had a great regular season, and so like you said, they don't have a Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, so you have to make up for the other aspects of the game, and he does a great job with his play calling in that.
When it comes to Kyle Shanahan, it's pretty much a 50-50. Like, do you take the whole idea of bringing up a franchise, historic franchise in a way, from the depths where they were at before Kyle Shanahan came in, and the whole idea of whether or not he is a playoff choker? And I have an additional question when it comes to the playoff choker situation. Do you think that in today's age, you can afford to keep a coach even though he has brought you success? He hasn't won the big one. He hasn't won it. And this is something that it's going on not just in the NFL. It is a situation that I've seen in soccer as well, where a team that keeps getting second place doesn't win any championships, but the coach is consistent. It keeps bringing them regular season success. Do you think they should keep that coach to hopefully trust the process or look for another solution when it comes to the coaching department? What do you guys think?
That's a good question. And I just wanted to point out there's a lot of examples in recent memory of teams who like couldn't win a Super Bowl. They were known as chokers until they won it. So like the Colts with Peyton Manning, the Broncos with Peyton Manning, even the Chiefs, they were known as a team that couldn't win it all until they did. The Rams had a lot of years where they made the playoffs and they came up short until they finally won it. So I think from the Niners' perspective, you really can't put a price on winning because I think every sports fan knows what it's like when your team is terrible. And even though it's frustrating to see them lose in the playoffs, that is still better than being the Browns. Sorry, Browns. Okay. But so personally, I would keep him, especially because, like you were saying, they don't really. It's not like they make the playoffs barely and then lose in the first round. Like they go pretty far in the playoffs. So I think that's worth keeping, in my opinion, with the hope and the thought process that, like, yeah, eventually they're going to break through. Because people said the same thing about a lot of these teams that we now think of as champions, or that they are champions now. So if I were the owner, I would definitely keep him because again, like there's a lot of teams that have fired good coaches and then ended up regretting it. So I would keep him personally.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. Keep him. Didn't you mention like something the Niners, they either like don't make the playoffs, or if they do make the playoffs, they make it either to the championship game or to the Super Bowl, like this century or something like that. Or I remember you brought up some stat like that.
Yeah, definitely. Post 2010 or 2012, when they got once they got Harbaugh, I can't remember the last time they lost in the first round of the playoffs. It's usually NFC Championship or Super Bowl. While you're talking about your next point, I'm going to take a quick look at that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they should. I think it kind of like I mentioned earlier, but I think it would be hard to replace. You can't. Uh, put a price on playoff success, and like especially like also being a San Francisco Giants fan and like seeing them not make the playoffs is almost worse than the Niners making the playoffs, making it super far and losing in the Super Bowl. And as heartbreaking as that is, like at least we're in the playoffs. At least we have a chance to win the Super Bowl. And who knows, maybe one of these days, like maybe this year, maybe next year, like we will actually win that Super Bowl. And so if he's making it, especially like mentioned, super far, not just like a first round exit, he's literally making it to the game. And so just one game, if they can win one game, I you can't replace that. And quite frankly, who are you going to replace him with is kind of like a rhetorical question, but like who are you going to replace him with? You know?
I do have an answer for you now. So since 2011, they have either not made the playoffs or at worst lost in the conference championship. And then the last time they lost in the first round of the playoffs was 2001. So that just tells you how far they've made it. I do want to say, though, that we can't take for granted. I mean, every sports fan knows, like I said, what it's like to have your team be terrible. And you also know that it is so rare to see your team make it to a championship, especially more than once. And you have to take advantage of those, which is kind of why we're having this discussion.
And to go to the next point, this possibly the last point we're looking at this moment, we're keeping Kyle Shanahan. We're keeping him for this moment, for this season. What adjustments do you think Kyle Shanahan should make this season so he could finally win that Super Bowl? Because I feel like that's the one major question that we're all looking at, the one major itch, especially all 49ers fans that want to happen. We want to win that Super Bowl, especially for the Martin fans. Us for being here in the Bay Area, we want to see that success coming through. So, what adjustments do you think he should make in order to finally win the Super Bowl?
When we think about the last Super Bowl they lost to the Chiefs, it went to overtime. But it wouldn't have gone to overtime if Moody had not missed a field goal earlier in the game. And they still are bringing back Moody, who's cost them, I don't know, 3 to 5 games over the course of the last couple of years. So you need a kicker that you can rely on in the postseason to just make the field goals that you're supposed to. We're not asking him to make a 70-yarder. We're not asking him to kick into the wind and the snow. Just make the kicks you're supposed to in the postseason. And if he would have done that, Shanahan would have a ring already, right? So number one, don't bring back Moody, but they already have done that. So that's number one. I think the next thing they have to do, which Niners fans might not want to hear this, but I think they need. You can win with Purdy, but I think if they're gonna win for sure, they need another quarterback to take them over the top. That's not an adjustment they can make, so to speak. I like Purdy. I just don't think he is, like I said, top 10. But as far as adjustments on the field, I think 2 years ago they kind of ran McCaffrey into the ground. So maybe more of a running back by committee, and then it really comes down to Ricky Pearsall. I know they're gonna have Ayuk eventually, but is Pearsall going to be that second or third option? If he can be, then they should be fine. But that's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah, I think you brought up some good points. Balanced run game. I think the best version of McCaffrey is a fresh McCaffrey, and so especially during the regular season, if you can like not use him as much so that way he is fresh, especially for the postseason. And even during, like, let's say a postseason game, like not a big down or something like that, make sure we have another running back out there so that way his legs are fresh and he's not getting hurt or fatigued. I think that's important. I think one thing that I've learned is the Niners need to control the clock more. um I've noticed that, like, I looked up time of possession and they've won the time of possession in a couple of the Super Bowls they played in, but it wasn't by much. And I feel like if you can control the clock and you get the other team kind of like rushing and making a lot of throws, that they're bound to make more mistakes because there's less time. And so that's a big area I think Kyle Shanahan can improve. I think another area of improvement is kind of like you said. We need a new kicker. Jake Moody sucks. You saw it in last week's preseason game where he missed a 54-yarder. And like I know 54 like isn't far, but like for NFL kickers like in a dome, it's got to be
54
automatic.
should be
Like
automatic in 2025 for every NFL kicker. That's all I wanted to say.
exactly, exactly. And then he came back and hit the game winner against the Raiders in this last weekend preseason game. But like he never would have had to hit the game winner if he'd made that 54-yarder earlier. So we can't be missing. Honestly, I feel like what is it like 57 and below? maybe 56, 55. Like, anything inside of that are automatic and should be automatic, or at least like have a really good percentage. So I think if you can keep a fresh McCaffrey, control the clock, and then Jake Moody, you should be pretty good. But at the same time, I know you mentioned Purdy, and I think, yeah, like obviously you could have a better quarterback, and at the same time, it's like really hard to find that quarterback. And for until this past year, they've been drafting really low in the draft, so you have to find like those gems. Um, that are in the second round. So I think it is going to be hard to find a quarterback better than Purdy, and especially now that they paid him, they're probably not going to try like 10, 15 like draft picks or whatever on quarterbacks, especially since they got. So I think Purdy is good enough. Obviously, you want him to be better, but I think he's good enough to win it. I think if as long as you get good quarterback play out of him, like there's no reason why he and Kyle Shanahan can't win not the Super Bowl.
As far as Purdy goes, I think he can get you there, but it's like if they were to make the Super Bowl this year and they're facing the Bills, like, and you're asking him to outduel Josh Allen, I don't like him for the Niners in that position. And then one more thing I wanted to say as far as adjustments for Shanahan, this is just anecdotal, but I've heard this criticism of him a few times where in the Super Bowls that they've lost, or even with the Falcons, like when he's gotten a big lead, people say, and again, I have to look this up, but people have said like he gets too cute with his play calls and like he's trying to necessarily, if you want to call it this, like show off with what he's doing. I think if and when they get into a big game again, like you have to go for the kill. Like you just cannot let these teams hang around because too many times it's bit the Niners. So again, I have to go back and look, but I've heard people say like he gets too cute with his play calls and doesn't go to finish teams off. So that'd be another adjustment I would say.
Agreed.
No, yeah, 100%, and I agree. And again, this feel like we're attacking Jake Moody here, but I'm gonna give you a couple of stats to really show how effective Jake Moody, or if not really a bad Jake Moody's been for the 49ers for his career so far. Jake Moody has a 76.3% field goal percentage. He has made 45 out of 59 field goals. Now, last season it really affected badly. Last season he only made 70% of his field goals. So for his career he's a 76. Last season he was 70. Now let me tell you a kicker that I have backed, and you guys can really um, attest to the point that I have backed Robbie Gould for his career. He's one of my favorite kickers for some random reason. I like him a lot. For his career, Robbie Gould made 86% of his field goals. Out of 517 attempts, he has made 447. Now, I feel like, in my opinion, that is a big swing factor for the 49ers.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Like you said, you're leaving a lot of points on the board.
I feel like when it comes to what we think, 49ers at least have to make the postseason. And you guys are going to be getting our thoughts throughout the season with the 49ers. We are going to show you guys how we think the 49ers are doing, and in a future video hopefully we'll be ranking the teams that we believe should be Super Bowl contenders. Guys, thank you guys so much for joining us to the Section 408 podcast. It has been your host EG with my friends out here. Give out some outros for you guys.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys.
Appreciate the watch and listen.